Okay, so sorry.
Yeah. So where were we? We were talking about these parties, right?
Yeah,
The
sorry.
regional parties. Yeah.
Yes. So we talk about Sarawak.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. What kind of challenges do you think these parties are going to face?
Which parties? The regional parties or the main opposition parties or the
Sorry.
ruling parties?
So okay. Sorry. What kind of challenges do you think these ruling parties as well as the opposition are going to face in the upcoming elections?
Okay. I think that for the ruling party, the biggest challenge is that they have been in power for so long, and they basically have full control of the state. They have developed this idea that they are born ruler of this country, so they refuse to accept, to entertain with the possibility they may lose the next elections. They do everything to rig the elections so that they can win and stay in power, and that make them fail to be responsive to what the people want. So their reputations is tarred with corruptions, power abuse, and so on. And despite that, you do not see real reform. The current Prime Minister Najib Razak has been calling for all kinds of reforms. He come up with a whole list of alphabetical soup, government transformation program, economic transformation program, and so on. National key result area. You have all these kind of acronyms, but none of this really changed nature because the corruption still had take place. The ruling parties have many cronies, and these are the cronies would go after government project. So, for example, you have equipment maybe sold at 1,000. If the government were to purchase from the crony, they may buy it for 5,000. So you have serious problem. Every year when we have the Auditor General report, and Malaysians would complain because they find out that the government would spend, sometimes 3 or 4 times in buying whatever equipment. So you have a serious problem with that. With the ruling party, they cannot find way to really connect with the people because they've been protected by the regime. If you like, they are the prisoners of their own success in controlling the people. Now that the people refuse to be controlled, they lost their electoral appeal. Now the opposition side, their problem is that on one hand, they have to overcome a very unfair electoral process. They may actually win the majority support, but there's no guarantee that this support would actually translate into actual ballots, and then the ballots would be transferred into seats and so on for them to run the country. Even if they win the country, there's no guarantee that there will not be a coup or some or other disruption. And the current Prime Minister has said it's a taboo for him to hand over the country to the opposition. So that's a very undemocratic expression. Such statement would have lead him to be censured by the public and so on, but he got away with it in this country because that half of the population think that this country should be ruled by this coalition. So that's the first challenge for the opposition. With all this restriction, the opposition have very limited resources to use. Even their state governments are sometimes denied the rightful financial allocations from the federal government. Now the third question is that because they still haven't come into power yet, and with challenges posed by the ruling party to lure them to go separate ways, the opposition coalition is also plagued by internal conflict. So sometimes you have members of one party proposing something very outlandish to other party, and then the other party would say, no, we disagree with you on this and that gives the impression to the general public who are largely conservative that the opposition may not be electable. But over time, the third question has been resolved because now the oppositions are running 4 state governments, including the 2 of the most prosperous one, Selangor and Penang, and they have been doing very well. They save more money. These 2 states are much more advanced and environmental friendly and more responsive to the people. So the last challenge has been overcome. The real challenge now is that whether they can actually win the election legitimately.
Now, you spoke about the legitimacy of the elections. For the stakeholders, especially those who have already left politics, do they still have a strong hold on investment and invested interest with Malaysia?
Could you say again?
Sorry, let me repeat that the question again. Do you, for politicians who have left politics,
Retired politicians.
yes,
right?
retired
Okay.
politicians,
Yeah.
what we have seen is that they have some invested interest in Malaysia, especially with the former party,
Former Prime Minister. Mahathir.
BN,
Yeah.
BN and so forth. Um, what what do you foresee if, well, do you think that these former politicians have some form of say, or do they have uh, some form of empowerment to define how Malaysia is going to be tomorrow, despite that they have left politics?
Well, I think some of them, a good example would be the former Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. He has been giving all sort of advices on all issue, whether his opinion is solicited or not. Powerful retired politicians do have influences in getting government projects and so on. Many of them would just sit in the board of listed company because their connection would allow them to get more contracts and so on. So they do have a say in policies, a lot of times in development projects. But I think increasingly these people are losing control because in the past, the main problem, I suppose that this is how I always look at things. Every society deserves its own government. If you have a corrupt government, that's because the people has been tolerating that for whatever reason. So in the past, that retired politicians have a lot of leverage in to change public policies or public decision because the people have been basically staying out. They keep quiet. They allow this politician to run the country and ruin the country. But over time, you find more and more people stand up, so their influence is on the decline. But there are people, of course, worry and say, until they really get rooted out, would they actually take this as a last chance to actually grab more of the state resources?
Now, what do you foresee for this coming elections for Malaysia in Sarawak, Sabah, and Semenanjung, and even Malaya itself? What advice would you give for stakeholders and investors? Do they think that they should continue to invest in Malaysia?
I think this is a very important question. We do notice, we are conscious that many business investors are very wary of the political situation in Malaysia. They worry that whether they would get sink into, whether they would risk their investment being defaulted by or disrupted by political turmoil and so on. And also that you notice there's a lot of demonstrations against unpopular or controversial development projects, like the Linus projects that is basically relocating highly radioactive plant processing rare earth to Malaysia, to the Malaysian port city of Kuantan. Another project in the southernmost part of the country of the peninsula. They plan to relocate a plant, petrochemical plant that has been forced out of Taiwan. So we have a questions of all these changes, and you may ask and say, now is this country still a good place to invest? I would say yes, but I think it's very important for the business community to realize and say this is not a country that you can come in and bribe your way through by buying over some corrupt politicians and bureaucrats. It was that kind of country before. But today, if you try to do so, you may find that your investment may be at stake because that you will find popular protests against projects. So that's one thing that I think foreign investors should be very mindful of. We welcome you to come in to invest. If your project is good, don't worry that it would be damaged. Malaysians are now much more rational and reasonable. You'll be welcome. Whoever come into power, they will want to keep you. So if your project is really beneficial, you don't have to worry. But if you think that I have a project that in an otherwise democratic country would not accept, let me push my way through because the government is corrupt, then prepare to get your project kicked out from this country because Malaysians have now waken up and they will speak up. The other questions that link to the business sector is that they worry about whether the poisonings of politics now, because that the ruling parties and the opposition parties are attacking each other, will it affect the business position? I think that's a legitimate concern. What we need here is a serious deal between across the political divide, that the ruling party and the opposition party sit down and to have what to have something like the roundtable negotiation in the Eastern Europe during 1989 1990, where the different parties sit down to negotiate the rules of the game. We need that because I think what we want is that when election is over, the loser would accept the outcome, would recognize the winners as the legitimate government, and the winner would not persecute the loser, would not carry out a witch hunt against the loser. That's the only way we can have a very stable and smooth and beneficial investment climate for everyone. And unfortunately, that's not happening directly. We need the business sector to knock this sense of realism and pragmatism into the mind of our political elites.
Now, how can investors, business entrepreneurs overcome corruption?
I think what you need is actually free media. This is actually what the Transparency International have been fighting for. Because if you have free media, then things become corruption get exposed. With a higher degree of transparency, eventually everything would have to be revealed to the public, and so therefore you can't have a lot of underlying costs that would eventually how would I say get your come back again. I think the fundamental solution to corruption is to have a truly independent and plural media, so that every public decision would be put under scrutiny of the public, and therefore corruption will get exposed, and business can know exactly what they need to pay. No government officer can actually hold back your business proposal and extract money from you, because he would get exposed, he would get sacked, he would get jailed. Until you have that, none of this is going to happen. And I think that the international business community do have that power to push Malaysian government, whichever party is in power, to further pursue good governance, because Malaysia does need foreign investment. So you are in a powerful position to make this country better. As I say, if you come in here to invest because of to exploit our abundant supply of natural resources, human resources, and so on, for mutual benefits of both countries, for your company and for us, you're welcome. Malaysians would all open our arm to welcome you. But if you think that this is a poor country, you can manipulate to get your way through, be prepared to face public outcry and objection.
Well, Dr. Wong, thank you for joining us here at the National Critics' Choice, the Climate Review, and we value your feedback and also your insights on Malaysia. And once again, I'm Robin Steinberg. Thank you for joining me here at the National Critics' Choice, the Climate Review, on Malaysia's politics, the elections that's coming up, as well as advice for the business community in regards to investing in Malaysia. Once again, have a good week ahead, and do come and visit Malaysia if you have to, and enjoy their festive seasons and also, of course, their food. Once again, have a good week ahead.
Thank you. I hope that when you come here, you will enjoy our democracy as well.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry to take your time.
No problem. I hope that you would you get what you want.
Yep, we have to edit it.